the NFL has recently, or just announced a couple hours ago, that COVID officially in the rear view. Great news for me and NFL fans abroad. Big time. We no longer have to worry about random, surprise COVID absences from games, right? No more COVID testing, no more mask mandates on the sidelines when guys just literally have it strapped around their chin. It's the dumbest thing I've ever seen. So all that stuff is behind us. Finally, feels like it was a marathon, and it wasn't easy. We were seeing guys like Sean Payton call it quits, at least for now, or for the time being, as a result of that wearing down. So I can't imagine, there's where there's one in that regard, there are likely many others. Secondly, today is obviously Thursday, March 3rd, which means that we've got quarterbacks, wide receivers, and tight ends beginning their on-field NFL Combine activity today. I just was watching the tight ends a few minutes ago, which is important for reasons that we will discuss here in just a few moments. But cool things that I'm noticing, obviously, early on that I wasn't aware of going in is that they're playing music now at the Combine. So it's not dead silent where you can hear a pin drop. All these guys are trying to get out of their own minds and really just focus on being the athletes that they are and going and putting up their best possible numbers. So that, as well as having fans in attendance now. There's a few sections of fans there at Lucas Oil Stadium all watching, which kind of, again, it's more of a natural game-like feel for these guys. And even when they're training, it's not dead silent. So getting ready for the Combine, I know there's music involved. They got coaches. They got their boys that they're training with. Most of these guys at the Combine have, they'll go to their local, like their agents will set up for them specific places to go and train, and they'll pay for it and have it covered. Like, for instance, people in the DFW area might be familiar with, the name is slipping my mind now, but it's Game On, the complex over there, Apex Sports in White Settlement down in Fort Worth. So that type of stuff. A lot of these guys are training together. So again, it's that competitive environment where they're pushing each other, they're there for each other. The music's on, it's loud, it's playing. I've been in some of those environments myself and experienced it firsthand. So it's cool to watch, cool to see. But as an athlete, I know that can be something for these guys where they can just kind of be a little bit more comfortable in a very, very tense and stressful weekend. It's like I've heard a lot of NFL players, current and even veterans who are no longer in the league, talk about the NFL Combine is the most stressful and the longest 3 to 4 day stretch of their entire NFL career, just because it's constant meetings and interviews and testing, and you've got on-field workouts, you've got behind-the-scenes stuff where you're doing just all kinds of different things that you're not used to, and you're out of your comfort zone, you're sleep deprived and all that. So cool to see them start to add in some things to make these guys more comfortable. Now, moving on to real quick, I know there's lots of different people who are talking about what's the best and most likely fits for the Cowboys. So I'll give you some of those names, try to keep it real short and sweet for y'all. 2 offensive names most likely for the Cowboys at 24. Offensive lineman, a guard actually out of A&M, Kenyon Green, who checks all the boxes for what the Cowboys obviously need, right? Position of need for me. Offensive line in general is number one priority for this team moving forward. And then secondly, the name most commonly allocated to the Cowboys at 24 is center out of Iowa, Tyler Linderbaum. So very athletic guy, really smart, cerebral dude that's drawing, just a lot of interest based on his athleticism, right? So, and his leadership. Cool to see that. We'll be interested to see those 2 guys compete in this Combine tomorrow. What do we say? Offensive linemen and running backs. Yeah, tomorrow at 3 o'clock, that's when that begins. So Kenyon Green and Tyler Linderbaum. Defensively, we got Devin Lloyd and Nakobe Dean, both linebackers. Number one position of need for the Cowboys on that side of the ball, given that we know they won't look at the interior of their defensive line on day one. So I'll just go ahead and pretend like that position doesn't exist, since that's what they like to do. Devin Lloyd and Nakobe Dean. So obviously Nakobe Dean, the catalyst and playmaker, the instinctive guy who galvanized that unit of just loaded with talent from Georgia, who will see probably at least 5 guys go in the first 2 days of that draft from that side of the ball. So national championship leader, and obviously the play backs it up to the film. So, yeah, those are one other name to watch for the Cowboys, considering they're going to have some issues trying to figure out how to make all these different decisions work and come together with the cap with Dalton Schultz, Michael Gallup, and Amari Cooper. A maybe later round, day 3 guy to keep an eye on, and it is more personal to me because his brother played for the University of Texas. It's Caden Stearns, now currently with the Denver Broncos, but his brother, Jarrett Stearns, Jerreth, his receiver for Western Kentucky, posted pretty ridiculous numbers, and this is actually brought to my attention by Steven, who had Caden Stearns on his podcast a couple weeks ago. Steven over at Fanatic Perspective, so shout out to him there. But I wanted to throw this name out there. 150 catches, 1,900 yards, and 17 touchdowns. And just to provide some context or added perspective there, Cooper Kupp this year, one of the best statistical receiving seasons ever in the NFL. This year's Super Bowl MVP, had 145 catches for 1,900 yards and 16 touchdowns. So nearly identical slash lines in all 3 of those categories. 150 for Jarrett, 1,917, and then 145 for Kupp, 1,916. So pretty crazy stuff to watch there. I thought that context was kind of interesting. That's a name that I'll be watching closely, who unfortunately is not going to be participating with the wide receivers today in the Combine because he didn't get invited. So maybe overlooked, a little chip on his shoulder, but the production is certainly there. So I'll be interested to see how that kind of plays out for him at his pro day. Now, the second topic as it pertains to the Cowboys outside of just their draft pick and names that could be allocated to them, we're going to talk about Dalton Schultz today, who Michael Gehlken actually broke news kind of surprisingly a couple hours ago on Twitter, right? Dalton Schultz, who is due for another contract, possibly due to be franchise tagged, who we've talked about those dates. We'll get to that in just a second. But the franchise tag deadline opened up on February 22nd. The deadline to tag somebody will be on March 8th. So that's coming up. We'll see between now and March 8th whether or not they tag Dalton Schultz. But I'm of the belief that they absolutely should not do that. And because the reason that is because I believe that tag is going to guarantee Dalton Schultz somewhere in the $10 to $11 million range. Obviously a guy who wasn't necessarily expected to play the way that he did or have the role that he did based on where we were at this time last year, with Blake Jarwin obviously coming off the injury. And Dalton Schultz kind of just exceeding expectation, outplayed his draft slot in the 4th round 4 years ago. But now you got to pay him. So if you pay Dalton Schultz, if you tag him, that means to me, I think the Cowboys will also probably be planning on letting Amari Cooper walk and saving $16 million by doing that, either trading or cutting him, right? So, but the reason why that is all of a sudden more of a spotlight issue now is because we just found out Michael Gehlken reporting that Blake Jarwin has had hip surgery, a very, in his words, unique hip surgery or hip injury that is very, quote, uncommon. So that obviously doesn't bode well. The Cowboys now, would be looking at if they did move on from Dalton Schultz, who I don't want them to tag because it means they'll probably be moving on from Amari Cooper, which I don't believe is a great idea. You'd be looking at, Sean McEwen, who didn't play a lot last year, and Jeremy Sprinkle, who was more of just a run blocker, right? So I think he had like 3 targets all of last season, something crazy. So for those reasons, other names to watch for the Cowboys are, and this is going to be maybe an oversimplification, but just for the viewer, for the sake of time, every tight end that's currently in this 2022 NFL Combine. So keep an eye on the tight end position. Those guys are running right now. Like I said, if you're watching this today, the tight ends will have probably concluded all their on-field activities. So stuff is getting real interesting for the Cowboys, who have lots of decisions to make regarding DeMarcus Lawrence, Amari Cooper, Leighton Vander Esch, now Dalton Schultz, Michael Gallup, and a plethora of other defensive players who they've got to try and extend. Most importantly, in my opinion, is Jaron Kearse. So anyways, we'll leave it at that. The dates that I mentioned, wanted to talk about real quick. The tag window, obviously, it opened February 22nd. The Cowboys will have up until March 8th to decide whether or not they'll be tagging Blake Jarwin, or I'm sorry, Dalton Schultz or otherwise. The combine begins today, ends on Sunday. Lots to break down between now and then. I actually did just now get access a couple days ago to the college tape. So the All-22 film that all these coaches have access to, I was able to figure out how to pay for it and acquire it. So be excited to expand and broaden my knowledge as we move forward to the NFL draft in April. That's another date. And then, but the last date that we really need to keep in mind is March 16th. The new league year begins, which means that free agency will also be opening up. And so the NFL draft will be kind of a time for the Cowboys to, assess and address their holes that they weren't able to fill in free agency. And again, we know they like to build and pay their guys from within and don't really do things, don't really get too crazy with as far as the money spending is concerned. So that's about it. I wanted to also announce, we got episode 2 coming up tonight with 3 other guys, very close friends of mine. We're calling ourselves Spittin' Sports, man, because that's just what we do. We wanted to create the environment of just, bro talk, covering broad spectrum sports and stuff like that, which 2 of the 3 that I'm referring to are, in my opinion, the brightest NBA and NFL minds that I personally know and that I grew up with. So I'm excited to kind of let them just do their thing. And I'm excited to let them have their voices heard. And the other one, Colt Elkins, he'll be joining us as well this time. We had some technical difficulties on that front with him last week, but he'll be joining us. So that's going to be every Thursday night. We're recording tonight over on Mike Fisher's channel. That'll be posted hopefully at some point tomorrow morning or afternoon, and we'll keep it rolling. But that's it, y'all. Don't forget, as I awkwardly dismount here, the today happens once, man. So don't waste it. Be productive. Don't be afraid to take risks, and be nice to people. You never know how good that might make you feel and what that can mean to somebody who's having a tough day. So I love y'all. Thanks for watching. See you next time, and I'll see you tomorrow on Mike Fisher's channel, Spittin' Sports with the boys. Y'all be easy.